Hello, happy Saturday, happy Qabalah Day, because today I'm going to be bringing you a quick little read on Qabalah after I do my sound check, of course. Oh, come on, where is it? There we go. Nice, working great. We knew it would be. Music playing, and then we'll do it. So much love. Greetings. Happy Saturday. I hope you're all enjoying the weekend, whatever it may be bringing you. Or maybe you're finding this and listening to this in a time where weekends no longer exist. And so in that dystopian reality, I still hope you're enjoying yourself. All right, so today it's going to be a quick read, like I said, and we're going to read Elements of the Qabalah by Eliphas Lévi, which is a series of letters he wrote on Qabalah, kind of, sort of, mostly. You'll see. I'm sure we could breeze through it pretty quickly. Let's see. So here we just have our table of contents. That's not that important. So we'll go ahead and get right in it. All right. Elements of the Kabbalah in 10 lessons. Letters of Eliphas Levi. First lesson, General Prolegomena. I don't know what prolegomena is. Prolegomena, maybe. I don't know. Maybe one of you knows. Let's look it up. Prolegomena. It means a critical or discursive introduction to a book. Sick. All right, then. Well, then, that's what we have here. Welcome in, everybody just coming in. I hope you're all excited to read this general introduction or discursive to Kabbalah by Eliphas Levi. So, let's get it going. Friend and brother, I can give you this title because you are searching for the truth in the sincerity of your heart, ready to make necessary sacrifices in order to find it. Truth, being the essence of all that is not difficult to find. It is within us, and we are within it. It is like light, and the blind do not see it. Being is. This is incontestable and absolute. The exact idea of being is truth. Its knowledge is science. Its ideal expression is reason. Its activity is creation and justice. You wish to believe, you say. For this, it is enough to know and to love truth. For the true faith is the unshakable adhesion of the mind to the necessary deductions of science in conjectural infinity. Only occult science gives certitude, for they have their bases in realities and not in dreams. In every religious symbol, they bring out the true and the false. What is true is the same everywhere, but falsehoods spring up according to places, times, and people. These sciences are three: the Kabbalah, magic, and Hermeticism. The Kabbalah, or traditional science of the Hebrews, might be called the mathematics of human thought. It is the algebra of faith. It solves all problems of the soul as equations by isolating the unknowns. It gives ideas to the clarity and rigorous exactitude of numbers. Its results for the mind are infallibility, always relative, however, to the sphere of human knowledge, and for the heart, profound peace. Magic, or the science of the magi, has its ancient representatives in the disciples and perhaps the teachers of Zoroaster. It is the knowledge of secret and particular laws of nature which produce hidden forces, magnets, and lodestones which may exist even outside the realm of metal. In a word, and to use a modern expression, it is the science of universal magnetism. Hermeticism is the science of nature hidden in the hieroglyphics and symbols of the ancient world. It is the search for the principles of life, along with the dream, for those who have not yet achieved it, of accomplishing the great work. That is the reproduction by man of the divine, natural fire which creates and recreates beings. Here, my friend, are the things you desire to study. The circle they enclose is immense, but the principles are so simple that they are represented and contained in the signs of the numbers and in the letters of the alphabet. It is a labor of Hercules that is also a child's game, say the masters of holy science. Characteristics necessary to success in this study are a great rectitude of judgment and a great independence of mind. One must rid oneself of all prejudice and every preconceived notion, and it is for this reason that Christ said, unless you become as a little child, you cannot enter the Malkut, that is, the kingdom of knowledge. We will begin with the Qabalah, whose divisions are these: Berech, Berechet, Berechit, probably, because it's going to be Hebrew, Merkava, Gematria, and Lemura. Yours in the holy science, Eliphas Lévi. Friendly tag, welcome in. What are we doing? We are reading The Elements of the Qabalah by Eliphas Lévi. And that will do it for the first letter. So, the Qabalah goal and method. Qabalah second lesson, the goal and method. In studying the Qabalah, one should strive to arrive at profound peace by means of tranquility of mind and peace of heart. Tranquility of mind is an effect of certainty. Peace of heart comes from patience and faith. Without faith, science leads to doubt. Without science, faith leads to superstition. Uniting them brings certainty, but in so doing, they must never be confused with each other. The object of faith is hypothesis, and this becomes certitude when the hypothesis is necessitated by evidence or by the demonstrations of science. Science establishes facts. From the repetition of facts, it presupposes laws. The generality of facts in the presence of such and such a force demonstrates the existence of laws. Intelligent laws are necessarily imposed and governed by intelligence. Unity within the laws presupposes the unity of legislative intelligence. This intelligence, which we are forced to imagine, only seeing it at work in external manifestations, and which we can in no way define, is what we call God. You receive my letter. There is an obvious fact. You recognize my handwriting and my thoughts, and you conclude from this that it is indeed I who have written to you. This is a reasonable hypothesis. But the necessary hypothesis is that someone wrote the letter. It could be counterfeit, though you have no reason to suppose it is. Were you to suppose so, groundlessly, you would be making a very doubtful hypothesis. Were you to claim that the letter, fully written, fell from the sky, you would be making an absurd hypothesis. Here is then, according to the Kabbalistic method, how certitude is formed. Friendly tag. I hope you have a good day in the name of the Lord. God be with you. Amen. And same to you. Thank you. Okay, so here is then, according to Kabbalistic method, how certitude is formed. Evidence. Then scientific demonstration, certitude. Necessary hypothesis, reasonable hypothesis, probability, doubtful hypothesis, doubt, absurd hypothesis, error. By keeping to this method, the mind acquires a veritable infallibility, for it affirms what it knows, believes what it must necessarily suppose, admits reasonable suppositions, examines doubtful ones, and rejects those which are absurd. All the Kabbalah is contained in what the masters call the 32 roads and the 50 gates. The 32 roads are 32 absolute and real ideas attached to the signs of the 10 arithmetical numbers and to the 22 letters of the Hebraic alphabet. Here are these numbers. So 1, supreme power. 2, absolute wisdom. 3, infinite intelligence. 4, goodness. 5, justice or harshness. 6, beauty. 7, victory. 8, eternity. 9, productivity. And 10, reality. Now on to the letters. Aleph, being father. Bet, mother. Gimel, nature. Dalet, authority. He, religion. Val, liberty. Zoyan, ownership. Het, distribution. Tet, prudence. Yod, order. Kaf, force. Lamed, sacrifice. Mem, death. Nun, reversibility. Samek, universal being. Pe, immortality. Oyin, balance. Zadi, shadow and reflection. I've never seen Zadi spelled out like that. Kuf, light. Resh, recognition. And Tal, synthesis. Okay, so Kabbalah, third lesson, use of the method. In the preceding lesson, I spoke only of the 32 roads. Later, I will talk of the 50 gates. The ideas expressed by numbers and letters are incontestable realities. These ideas follow from one another and agree like the numbers themselves. One proceeds logically from one to the next. Man is the son of woman, but woman comes out of man as number comes out of unity. Woman clarifies nature, nature reveals authority, which creates religion, basis for liberty, which makes man master of himself and of the universe, etc. Get hold of a tarot. I believe, in fact, you already have one. And in 2 series, lay out the 10 allegorical cards numbered from 1 to 21. You will see all the figures which correspond to the letters. As for the numbers from 1 to 10, you will find them repeated 4 times with the symbols of the baton or scepter of the father, the cup or delices of the mother, the sword of love, and the coins of productivity. The tarot is included in the hieroglyphic book of the 32 roads, and its summary explanation can be found in the book attributed to the patriarch Abraham, which is called Sefer Yetzirah. the Sefer Yetzirah or Sefer Yetzirah. Sunshine Chick, welcome in. Always good to see you. I hope you're having a good Saturday. The savant Court de Gabelin was the first to discover the importance of the tarot, which is the great key to the hieratic hieroglyphs. Its symbols and numbers are to be found in the prophecies of Ezekiel and of St. John. The Bible is an inspired book, but the tarot is the book of inspiration. It has also been called the wheel, rota, whence tarot and Torah. The ancient Rosicrucians knew it well, and the Marquis de Suchet speaks of it in his book on visionaries. It is from this book that our card games have come. Spanish cards still bear the principal signs of the primitive tarot, and they are used to play the game of the hombre or man. Vague reminiscence of the early use of a mysterious book containing oracular decrees about all human divinities. The earliest tarots were medals which have since become talismans. The clavicules, or little keys of Solomon, were made up of 36 talismans bearing 72 engravings analogous to the hieroglyphic figures of the tarot. These figures, altered by copyists, can still be found on ancient clavicules, which exist in some libraries. A manuscript of this type exists in the Bibliothèque Nationale and another in the Bibliothèque de l'Arsenal. The only authentic manuscripts of the clavicules are those which give the series of 36 talismans with the 72 mysterious names. The others, however ancient they may be, belong to fantasies of black magic and contain nothing more than clever tricks. For an explanation of the tarot, see my Dogma and Ritual of True Magic. Yours in the Holy Science, Eliphas Lévi, which is also known as Transcendental Magic, which I think at some point we'll probably work our way into, but we don't want to bite off way too much more than we can chew. And I want to do my best to keep these in order. All right. So, the fourth lesson, the Qabalah 1, brother and friend. Bereshit means Genesis. Merkavah means chariot, alluding to the wheels and mysterious animals of Ezekiel. The Bereshit and the Merkavah summarize the science of God and of the world. I say science of God, and yet God is infinitely unknowable. His nature entirely escapes our investigations. He is the absolute principle of being and of beings and must not be confused with the effects he produces. And it can be said, affirming his existence all the while, that he is neither being nor a being. Such a definition confounds reason, without, however, causing us to go astray and keeps us forever from all idolatry. Cosmic Traveler, welcome. Good to see you. Says I'd be down for an in-depth tarot explanation. All right, well, I'll keep that in mind because I definitely would be down for reading a book that's going to maybe break down some tarot more, but all things in time. All right, God is the only absolute postulatum of all sciences, the entirely necessary hypothesis which serves as a basis for any certainty. And here is how our ancient masters established, above science itself, this assured hypothesis of faith. Being is. In being is life. Life is made manifest by movement. Movement is perpetuated by the balancing of forces. Harmony results from the analogy of opposites. There are in nature an immutable law and an undefinable progress, perpetual changing of forms and the indestructibility of substance. This is what one finds upon observing the physical world. Metaphysics presents us with the analogous laws and facts either in an intellectual or a moral order. On one side, unchanging truth. On the other, fantasy and imagination. On one side, there is goodness, which is truth, and on the other, evil, which is false. And from these apparent conflicts arise both judgment and virtue. Virtue is composed of goodness and justice. Its goodness makes it indulgent, its justice makes it harsh. Good because it is just, and just because it is good. It is always beautiful. This great harmony of the physical and moral worlds, incapable of having a cause superior to itself, reveals and demonstrates to us the existence of an unchanging wisdom and of an infinitely active creative intelligence. Upon this wisdom and this intelligence, each inseparable from the other, reposes the supreme power which the Hebrews have named the crown. The crown and not the king, for the idea of a king would imply an idol. For Kabbalists, the supreme power is the crown of the universe, and the entirety of creation is the kingdom, or if you prefer, the domain of this crown. No one can give what he has not. Thus, we can assume that what we see manifested in effects is also present in the cause. God, then, is the supreme power or crown, Kether, which sits upon an immutable wisdom, Hokmah, and creative intelligence, Binah. In him are goodness, Chesed, and justice, Gibura, which are the ideal of beauty, Tiferet. In him are forever victorious movement, Netzach, and the great eternal rest, Hod. His desire is a continual giving of life, Yesod, and his kingdom, Malkut, is the immensity which populates the universe. Enough, we are acquainted with God. Yours in the holy science, Eliphas Lévi. Drink time. Friendly tag. Glad to have you still here. Hope you're enjoying this. Hope you're learning something. Okay, our fifth lesson, the Qabalah 2. Brother and friend, this rational conscience of divinity, spread over the 10 ciphers which compose all numbers, give you the whole method of Kabbalistic philosophy. This method is composed of 32 means or instruments of knowledge, which are called the 32 roads, and of 50 subjects to which the science may be applied, and that are called the 50 gates. Universal synthetic science is thus regarded as a temple to which there lead 32 paths and which may be entered through 32 doors. This numerical system, which could also be called decimal since it is based on the number 10, establishes by means of analogies an exact classification of all human knowledge. Nothing is more ingenious, but likewise nothing is more logical and exact. This number 10 applied to absolute notions of being in the divine order, in the metaphysical order, and in the natural order is thus repeated 3 times, which gives 30 for purposes of analysis. Add synlepsis and synthesis, that is, unity which begins as a concept in the mind, and unity which brings together as one all that is, and you have the 32 roads. The 50 gates are a classification of all being into 5 series of 10, each and which embraces all one can know and extends to the entire body of knowledge. But it is not enough to have found an exact mathematical method. In order to be perfect, this method must be progressively revelatory. That is, it must give us the means of making all possible deductions unerringly, of obtaining new knowledge, and of developing the mind without leaving anything to the capriciousness of the imagination. This is what one obtains through the gematria and the lemura, which are the mathematics of idea. The Kabbalah has its ideal geometry, its philosophical algebra, and its analogic trigonometry. It is thus that, so to speak, it obliges nature to render up her secrets. One such high knowledge is acquired. One goes on to the final revelations of the transcendental Kabbalah, studying the Shem HaMephorash, the source and reason of all dogmas. There, brother and friend, is what there is for you to learn. Does it frighten you? My letters are short but concise and say much. I have spaced my first 5 lessons rather far apart so as to give you time for reflection. I can write to you more often if you so desire. With the ardent wish of being useful to you, I remain your devoted servant in the holy science, Eliphas Lévi. All right, the Kabbalah 3, sixth lesson, brother and friend. The Bible gives man 2 names. The first is Adam, which means drawn from the earth, or man of earth. The second is Enos or Enoch, which means divine man or lifted to God. According to Genesis, it is Enos who first spoke publicly on the principle of beings. And this same Enos was, it is said, taken alive up into heaven after having engraved the primitive elements of religion and universal science on 2 stones, which are called the columns or pillars of Enoch. This Enoch is not a person, but a personification of humanity uplifted by religion and science to a sense of immortality. At the time designated by the name of Enos or Enoch, the cult of God appears on earth and ritual worship begins. This time also marks the beginning of civilization with writing and the hieratic movements. The civilizing genius which the Hebrews personify in Enoch was named Trismegistus, and by the Egyptians, by the Egyptians, and by the Greeks, Cadmos or Cadmus. He who saw the living stones of Thebes rise of themselves and take their place to the accompaniment of Amphion's lyre. The primitive sacred book, the book that Postel calls the Genesis of Enoch, is the first source of the Kabbalah, tradition at once divine, human, and religious. Here, in all its simplicity, appears the revelation of supreme intelligence, to reason and to the love of man. the eternal law governing infinite expansion, the numbers in infinite expansion, the numbers in immensity and immensity in numbers, poetry in mathematics and mathematics in poetry. Zero, welcome in. Always great to see you. Who would believe that the book which inspired all these theories and religious symbols has been preserved, coming down to us in the form of a deck of strange cards? Nothing is truer, however, and Court de Gabeline, since followed by all those who have seriously studied the symbolism of these cards, was the first to discover it in the last century. The alphabet and the 10 numerical signs are, of course, the basic elements of all sciences. Add to them the signs of the four cardinal points of heaven or of the four seasons, and you have the book of Enoch in its entirety. But each sign represents an absolute or, if you will, essential idea. The form of each cipher and of each letter has its mathematical reason and hieroglyphic significance. Ideas, inseparable from numbers, follow their movement by addition, multiplication, etc., and acquire their exactitude. The Book of Enoch is the arithmetic of thought. Yours in the holy science, Eliphas Lévi. Okay, seventh lesson, the Qabalah 4. Brother and friend, in the 22 keys of the tarot, Court de Gabeline saw the representation of Egyptian mysteries and attributed their invention to Hermes Trismegistus, who was also called Thoth. It is certain that the hieroglyphics of the tarot can be found on the ancient monuments of Egypt. It is certain that the signs of this book, traced in synoptic ensembles on steles or metal tables similar to the Isiac table of Bembo, were separately reproduced on engraved stones or metals, which later became amulets and talismans. Thus, the pages of the Infinite Book were separated into diverse combinations in order to assemble, transpose, and retranspose them for the obtaining of inexhaustible oracles of truth. I have in my possession one of these ancient talismans which a traveling friend brought me from Egypt. It shows the two of coins, the figurative expression of the great law of polarity and equilibrium, producing harmony through the analogy of opposites. Here is how this symbol is shown in the tarot which we possess and which is sold today. It's got this like S right here. I'm assuming that's supposed to be part of how it's shown. The medallion I have is rather worn, about as big as a silver 5 franc piece, but thicker. The two polaric points are shown exactly as in our Italian tarot, a lotus flower with a halo. The astral current which separates and at the same time attracts the two polaric seats is represented on our Egyptian talisman by the goat of Mendes, placed between two vipers analogous to the serpents of the caduceus. On the reverse side, one sees an adept or Egyptian priest who, having substituted himself for Mendes between the two points of universal equilibrium, is leading the goat, now simply a docile animal governed by man, the imitator of God, down a long avenue planted with trees. The 10 numerical signs, the 22 letters of the alphabet, and the 4 astronomical signs of the seasons are the summary of the entire Kabbalah. 22 letters and 10 numbers give the 32 ways of the Sefer Yetzirah. 4 gives the Merkabah and the Shem HaMephorash. It is as simple as a child's game and as complicated as the most arduous problem of pure mathematics. It is as profound and naive as truth in nature. These 4 elementary astronomical signs are the 4 forms of the Sphinx and the 4 animals of Ezekiel and St. John. Yours in the holy science, Eliphas Lévi. 8th lesson. That duality, says Zero. Absolutely. Okay. 8th lesson, the Qabalah 5. Brother and friend, the science of the Kabbalah makes doubt, as regards religion, impossible, for it alone reconciles reason with faith by showing that universal dogma, at bottom, always and everywhere the same, though formulated differently in certain times and places, is the purest expression of the aspirations of the human mind, enlightened by a necessary faith. It points out the usefulness of religious practices, which fortify will by fixing the attention, throwing light on all the cults. It proves that the most effective cult is that which brings together, so to speak, divinity and man, making him see it, touch it, and incorporate it into himself. It is enough to say that I am speaking here of the Catholic religion. This religion, to the vulgar mind, appears to be the most absurd of all, for it is the most revealed. I use the word in its veritable sense, revelare, to reveal, to veil again. You know that, according to the Gospels, at the death of Christ, the veil of the temple was rent asunder, and all down the ages the church has worked dogmatically to weave a new one. It is true that the heads of the sanctuary themselves, having wished to become its princes, long ago lost the keys of high initiation. This does not, however, prevent the letter of dogma from being sacred, nor the sacraments from having their effect. I have set forth in my books that the Christian Catholic cult is high magic organized and regularized by symbolism and hierarchy. It is a safety device offered to human weakness so as to fortify the desire for good. Nothing has been forgotten. Neither the dark, mysterious temple, nor the incense, both calming and exalting, nor the long, monotonous chants which rock the brain into a kind of semi somnambulism, the dogma, whose obscure formulae appear to be the despair of all reason, serves as a barrier to the quibblings of inexperienced and indiscreet criticism. These formulae seem incomprehensible so as to better represent infinity. The Mass itself, celebrated in a language which most of the people do not understand, gives width to the thought of he who officiates and allows him to satisfy, through prayer, all the needs of his mind and heart. This is why the Catholic religion resembles this sphinx of the fable who, century after century, becomes its own successor, always arising from its ashes. This great mystery of faith is simply a mystery of nature. It would seem an enormous paradox were one to say that the Catholic religion is the only one which can justifiably be called natural, and yet this is true, for it alone satisfies with any fullness at all this natural need of man, which is the religious sense. Yours in the holy science, Eliphas Lévi. Okay, the Qabalah 6, ninth lesson. After a drink, of course. Okay, so ninth lesson, the Qabalah 6. Brother and friend, if the Catholic Christian dogma is entirely Kabbalistic, the same must be said for the great religions of the ancient world. The legend of Krishna, as it is recounted in the Bhagavatam, is a veritable gospel, similar to ours, but more naive, more brilliant. The incarnations of Vishnu number 10, like the Sephiroth of the Kabbalah, and in some ways form a more complete revelation than ours. Osiris, killed by Typhon, then resurrected by Isis, is Christ denied by the Jews, then honored in the person of his mother. The Thebaid is a great religious epic which must be placed beside the great symbol of Prometheus. Antigone is as pure a type of divine woman as Mary. Everywhere good triumphs through voluntary sacrifice, after having been temporarily subjected to the wild assaults of evil. Even the rites are symbolic and are transmitted from one religion to another. Diadems, mitres, surplices belong to all the great religions. And so the conclusion is that all of them are false, whereas it is only this conclusion which is false. The truth is that religion, like humanity, is one, always progressing, always changing, always the same. If, with the Egyptians, Jesus Christ is named Osiris, for the Scandinavians, Osiris is named Balder. He is killed by the wolf, Juris, but Odin calls him back to life, and the Valkyries themselves serve him, Hydromel in Valhalla. The Skalds, the Druids, the Bards sing of the death and resurrection of Tyrannus or of Tetanus, distribute to their faithful a sprig of holy mistletoe as we dispense the sacred palm during feasts of the summer solstice, and maintain a cult to virginity inspired by the priestesses of the Isle of Seine. We can then, in all fair conscience, set about performing the duties imposed on us by our native religion. Religious practices are collective acts, repeated with direct, preserving intention. Such acts are always useful in that they strengthen the will. They are, in a sense, its gymnastics, and they bring us eventually to the spiritual goal which we wish to attain. Magic practices have the same end and give results analogous to religious practices, but less perfect. How many men do not have the energy to do what they would like and what they ought to do? And there are such great numbers of women who devote themselves unflaggingly to labors as repugnant as those of the hospital or of teaching. Where do they find such strength? In small, repeated religious practices. Each day they say their rosary, kneeling in prayer. Yours in the holy science, Eliphas Lévi. All right, and on to the last, the 10th lesson, the Qabalah 7. Brother and friend, religion is not a servitude imposed on man. but an aid which has been offered him. From time immemorial, sacerdotal castes have sought to exploit, sell, and transform this aid into an unbearable yoke and burden. And the evangelical work of Jesus had as its aim the separation of the priest from religion, or at least the return of the priest to his place as the minister, the servant of religion, by giving back to human consciousness all its liberty and reason. Look at the parable of the Good Samaritan and at these precious words. The law was made for man, and not man for the law. Woe to you who lay upon others burdens you would not so much as touch with the tip of your finger, etc. The official church, which declares itself infallible in the apocalypse, the Kabbalistic key to the Gospels, has always existed side by side with occult strains of Christianity that maintained an interpretation of dogma quite different from that given out to the vulgar. The Templars, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons of high grade all belonged before the French Revolution to that church, which counted among its apostles Pasquale Martinez, Saint Martin, and even Madame de Krüdemer. The distinctive characteristic of this school is to avoid publicity and never to grow into what might be referred to as a dissident sect. The Count Joseph de Maistre, I don't know. Look, I only took French one, all right? This radical Catholic was far more sympathetic than one might think to the society of the Martinisti, Martinists, thus announcing an impending regeneration of dogma through the lights which shine forth from the sanctuaries of occultism. There exist today fervent priests initiated into antique doctrine, and one bishop, among others, has just died who asked me for Kabbalistic information. The disciples of Saint Martin called themselves the unknown philosophers, and now other disciples of a modern master, fortunate enough to remain anonymous, need take no name at all, for the world does not even suspect their existence. Jesus said that the yeast must be hidden in the bottom of the trough of dough in order that it may work night and day in silence until fermentation of the entire mass has taken place. An initiate can then, with simplicity and sincerity, practice the religion into which he was born. For all rites diversely represent one and the same dogma. But no initiate should open the depths of his conscience except to God, nor give account of his most intimate beliefs to anyone. The priest cannot judge that which the Pope himself cannot understand. The exterior signs of the initiate are modest knowledge, philanthropy without show, equality of character, and the most inalterable goodness. Yours in the holy science, Eliphas Lévi. Okay, and that does it. That does it for our quick little Kabbalah read, which I sure hope you have enjoyed. We did that. Why? To put us in the mood, because starting next week, we are going to go ahead and get into our next book, which is going to be a book on Kabbalah. For any of you who would like to purchase the book so that you can read along, the book is, drumroll, QBL by Frater Akkad. I think that one ought to be fun. I was torn between that and one other one, but that's the one I decided on. We're going to do QBL or The Bride's Reception. And tomorrow, we're going to read this, Light on the Path, which is a theosophical text. It's a pretty short one, but it's good. It's a really good one. I think you guys will enjoy it. All right, I can organize any of these that got out of place later. I don't need to do it while we're on here. So, for those who are here, Cosmic Traveler, Mr. Jax, 26, what's up? Good to have you here. Untrue Goddess, always good to see you. Zero, always so good to see you. Sunshine Chick, always so good to see you. And Friendly Tag. I hope you learned something today while you were hanging out. And I hope you all are so excited for the rest of the weekend. I know I am. I can't wait to finish up Cosmic Doctrine, if we're going to finish it up tonight. And I can't wait to do this one tomorrow. It ought to be an enjoyable way to spend a Sunday. I think that's it. I think I'm done yapping. Zero says, sound pretty fantastic. Thanks, Zero. I'll message you so that we can still figure out about getting on a phone call. And WT, always great to see you. Much love to you all. I hope you got a little something out of Eliphas Lévi's letters on Qabalah. And yeah, I hope if we finish it today, that will be awesome. But we'll just see, maybe next week. I don't know. I think we only had a few chapters left, didn't we? Either way. And then all of you help me convince Travis that the next book we need to do is Circuit of Force, the one with Garrett of Night, with Gareth Knight, Garrett of Night, with Gareth Knight and Dion Fortune, where they combined up. I mean, he can do whatever he wants. It's his channel. But with your help, we could probably convince him, huh? We could probably convince him. Circuit of Force. I think we'll all get a lot of benefit out of that, especially with his phenomenal commentary. He's just got such a way with words, doesn't he? We love you, Trav. All right, you guys. Well, I'm going to hop off, but thank you all for tapping in for this quick little Kabbalistic read. And I will see you tomorrow where we will step as a light onto the path. So much love. This has been Jay Baldale. Thank you, Friendly Tag. Thank you very much. Appreciate you hanging out with us. And bribe him with unicorns, right? Some of those unicorn gummies at the very least, huh? Tell him, hey, here you go. We got a little something to sweeten the deal, the incentive. All right, you guys. Well, Friendly Tag says, wait, what's up, Friendly Tag? Love you too, Zero. You're very welcome. Thank you. Friendly Tag asks, are you going to do a stream next week? Yes, I will. That's the plan. I mean, unless the good guy aliens finally touch down with the mothership and scramble all of our tech in the process, then yep, I am planning to come in to read another book on Qabalah. And Dino Assassin, good to see you. We're just finishing up for the day, but hopefully you can go back and catch the replay. All right, you guys, I'm ending it there. So much love. This has been Jay Baldale. If you're new and you enjoy this content, be sure to hit a like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.